Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome back to yet another AFK journey video. So following the tradition of the usual start of the new season, we're going to run through a Supreme Plus and Mythic Plus priority list to break down the different tiers for the different units recommendation for the newer players or the players still building up their accounts in general. So for those players who have a pretty developed account and looking at the Paragon tier priority, stay tuned, they will come in the next few days. So those are for the more experienced or the older players with a more developed account itself. Now for this video, we're going to run through the Mythic Plus and Supreme Plus recommendation and priority for the different units. And before we start talking about the tiers as well as the different units in the different categories, let's talk about the formatting. So for today's video, we'll follow the EX weapon video on the AFK journey page, where I'll just put the recommended tier on top of the unit so that you guys have a quick look as to what units are recommended at what tier, and I'll explain why these units are recommended at certain tiers and why they are recommended in the different categories for the ratings itself. So that will be how the discussion will go. And for today's video, because we don't want to waste too much time on all the not so necessary units, I'll be focusing more on the meta and versatile tier for the newer players, because these are generally units you want in your account that are generally good and like versatile across the board in general. So I'll be briefly talking about the PvE and PvP side, but the main discussion will be on the top two category. Then for the niche and no category, or the toilet bowl category, I'll just put it toilet bowl. Right, so the reason why they are there is because like these units, okay, first of all, the toilet bowl tier. So toilet bowl tier or walker tier, I'll just put walker tier. So the reason why there's this walker tier is because these units, they either have better substitutes or they just don't see much use anywhere else in terms of contents, and generally speaking, I won't recommend you build them up. For walker's case, I think walker might need more testing because walker got a massive boost to the S plus skill, which can be upgraded with the shadow essence, but I haven't actually had the opportunity to test him out much yet. Although if let's say you do upgrade him, I do see some potential in the PvP side that you can use him in, so I might put walker in the niche side, but then that's pretty much it. Like the niche and the walker tier are generally units which they are not the highest priority to build up. Then for the niche side, these units have certain users either for specific game modes or specific teams. Like for example, Seth for Relentless Rumble, Seth for like multi-mobbing contents, Satrana for Satrana Bonnie teams, Reese for additional damage for Mauler related contents, Hodgkin for the physical defense debuff to be used with the Graveborn, etc. So these units, they do have some use for very specific game modes or very specific teams in general. So that's why they're super niche, and that's why they're in the niche category. So with regards to the recommended tiers itself, we have three recommendations. One is the S plus, one is the M plus, and the last one is new. So new is usually I won't recommend you to invest in them, so their tiers will probably be lower than that. And then for the M plus, usually these units are the units which generally can function with just their EX weapon, and increasing them to S plus gives them more stats, but the skill from the Supreme Plus enhancement is not massive on what they want to do, so that's why they're good at M plus. And then everyone else at S plus to get the max potential and the maximum stats for general PvE side of things. So that's the different tiers. So niche and walker, not so much to talk about. They're just kind of niche, they are just not that good, so that's why they're down there. So those are the recommended tiers if you want to build them up. Then for the PvP as well as the PvE side, I'll just run through briefly. So for the PvE side, Antandra, Brutus, Kruger, these three Maulers over here, M plus more than sufficient, because for Kruger's case, you're using him for the debuff, so EX weapon plus level 8 on an EX weapon for maximum haste will be sufficient to cycle through his skills fast enough for the debuffing purposes. Then for Brutus' case, you're using him for the front lining for the Indomitable skill, so additional stats allow him to proc that Indomitable slower, so it does help, but then it's not the highest priority, so you can definitely leave him at just M plus or even lower if you are short on resources. Then for Antandra's case, you do get like shards of her in the early game, so this is a unit that can function at the lower tiers as well, because her shielding ability depends on the HP of the ally, so you use her as a secondary tank, and then you use her as a budget Mauler secondary tank as well. So these are the different users for this unit, but M plus for the EX weapon for additional damage reduction is good enough, because for the Mauler's case, you have quite a few really good A-level characters that you might want to develop. So for Lucius is used for your PvE content pushing, for your light bearer factional teams in general, or even certain light bearer teams that needs a shielder or a defensive unit in the team for the PvP side. So you can get him to S+, because his S+ skill is actually quite good, providing additional heals, and additional stats is good for him to frontline because he's a lot tankier. Then we have Morale, recommended to be at S+ if you do intend to build her up, because she did get a pretty decent buff in the S+ skill, which allows her to be a pretty decent single target damage unit as well as a AoE damage unit in general. So pretty big boost to her damage, making her generally good for PvE contents. I still think she's a little bit slow for PvP, but I never really had the opportunity to try, so maybe if there's more results with her performing, then we might give her the versatile tier in the future. So that's for Morale. Corinne's mainly for bossing. For shielding, S+ gives him more stats and also increased survivability. For Carolina's case, S+, cause Carolina's S+ skill is quite strong, and Carolina usually acts as a damage dealer, so S+ gives her more stats to hit harder, and her EX weapon allows you to have more debuff to give more damage to your magical teams. And let's say if you have Graveborn centric contents like Ravaged Realm, you can use Carolina. Certain Relentless Rumble bosses also runs Carolina if you need the control as well as the magical damage. So that's for the PvE units. For the PvP side, all your Barrow, Dino, Skalita, Dunleer, they're just really good for the PvP side. And generally speaking, for the Celestial Hypogean character, you kind of want them at S+ to get the most of their abilities, for them to be useful for PvP related contents. And for the PvP side, let's say if you are using those units a lot, getting them upwards to the Paragon tier is also recommended, but I'll talk more about the Paragon tier priority in another video, so stay tuned for that. And then we have Igor, Nara, Sylvina, as well as Viperion. These are all Graveborn characters that are generally good for the PvP side, either on the defense or the offense, and getting them to S+ gets them the additional stats to survive better and also maximize their abilities. For Igor's case, you get a tombstone at the start of battle, greatly increasing his ability to spawn more tombstones to be annoying on the battlefield. For Nara's case, you get increased energy regen, which allows her to spam the ultimate, and if you do kill people from there, even more heals with her EX weapon. Then we have Sylvina, additional stats as well as sniping power. Viperion for additional heals for his sustain as well as longevity in battle. Then for Vala's case, Vala's insanely good for PvP right now, not so much for PvE, because Light Bearer number 1 has Sonya as well as a lot of other good damage dealers from other factions, so Vala's probably more PvP centric now. But the thing is, Vala's still insanely powerful in the PvP side of things, so if you do want to build her up, then S+ would be the way to go to max out her stats as well as abilities. Now for the versatile category, let's start with the Maulers. We're going to group all the units by the factions and talk about them individually. Okay, so we have Torrent, we have the Light Bearers, okay, and then the Wilders. Okay, so for Reyna is one of the cheaper Celestial Hypogean that you want to invest in, even though Reyna right now may not be the strongest meta character in terms of general usage, because Reyna has a lot of substitutes right now, like in the form of Hugin, Sonya. You also have competition from buffers like Mikola as well as Muki to compete with. So I think Reyna has definitely fallen off a little bit, both on the PvP side and PvE side, but I'll say generally speaking, Reyna still insanely versatile, and getting him to M+ more than sufficient for the 25% damage reduction on the carry or the frontliner you want to send in, as well as the heals and the debuff itself. Then for Elsa, generally versatile. You can use her for PvP teams or even PvE content for her ultimate spam for Olsen. You can use her for damage in the Mauler centric teams, and you can use her with Iron Armors in the PvP side of things. So versatile unit, S+ to max out her abilities as well as control. Then we have Coco. So Coco can also be a M+ unit in terms of like her usage. This unit is just really versatile from the Mauler side, insane damage reduction, insane shielding. But for the A-level Maulers, generally speaking, the good ones will be Coco and OD. So if you have put Coco on a wish list, S+ should be quite easily achieved, and that's why I recommend S+ for her. Then for Mikola's case, Mikola's stat is, I'll say, important for her heals and stuff, but if you're using Mikola mainly as the buffer, M+ is more than sufficient, because that's where all the buffing stops, right? The additional permanent ultimate is good on the S+ skill, but I think Mikola is good enough if she's able to survive to keep on getting her ultimate off, because like her ultimate is like long enough, like the duration is long enough such that she can actually get to the next ultimate once the first one is over. So you technically don't need that permanent like honorary ultimate itself. So that's why M plus is more than sufficient. But then if you're using her for the PvP side, do consider getting her to S plus for additional survivability, as well as obviously the permanent ultimate if you have control of the arena. Then we have Bryon. So Bryon right now is actually quite decent, right? Both in the PvE side as well as the PvP side. So why PvE side is good? Because Bryon used to be good as a single target wilders damage dealer, right? With the debuffing. Right now in this season, Bryon is actually used together with the twins in the Mauler comp, in the Wilders comp with Iron and Almas, because of his single target as well as insta ultimate to trigger the Star Shard spell. So generally speaking, I think Bryon is still really good in terms of both the PvP and the PvE, because PvP you use him as a Lily May bait and you go really well with Iron teams in general. And for the PvE side, you have a few team options that can run him, and you also use him as a single target damage dealer from different game modes depending on which game mode you're talking about. So for him, S plus for the additional damage as well as stats, and also the EX weapon for the additional life or sustain throughout the battle. Then for Hewin's case, S plus ability really good. There's this 30 haste boost that is really good on, like, if let's say it falls on the important unit in PvP, and there are certain game modes in, like for example your AFK stage pushing where you need Hewin's ultimate to actually survive, right? Hewin's ultimate with the EX weapon ability, then that 30 haste is going to help you like survive better and give like maybe either your carry or the frontliner the ability to spam their skills. So S plus on Hewin, recommended. And then we have Lenya. So Lenya is used for PvP contents and PvE contents. PvE more for bossing and damage related. Let's say if you need a Wilders physical carry, there are certain Dream Realm bosses that you can try to use Lenya for, but she's not like the top tier meta units for Dream Realm purposes. But let's say for bossing like Ravage Realm, I think Lenya's pretty strong right now. Like she's the only Wilders physical attacker that you can use. So for the PvP side, if you can pull her off, she's quite a good anti-carry unit if you let her survive and get her ultimate and then snipe people off. So generally versatile, not the best of the best, but generally useful across different game modes. Then for Lawson's case, Lawson is a brand new unit. But from what I can observe about Lawson, I think he definitely fits into like existing Wilders team up there, and he also functions in like magical teams or teams where you can burst the enemy quickly and then trigger his EX weapon. So the Supreme Plus skill gives you additional control immunity, but then I think Lawson's kit will be good enough if you can get the EX weapon up, get the chain, and then snap the chain to control the enemy to stun them from there. So that's why M plus for Lawson is more than sufficient as a support / utility character. Now for Hugin's case, Hugin's S plus skill is big. Hugin's S plus skill actually is a damage boost to, it's a massive boost to your team survival because it's additional damage reduction and to 2 of your shielded unit, which is big. So I would recommend Hugin to be an S plus if you're able to get him up, because damage reduction is massive in this game, and that's why Hugin can act as like a replacement for Reyna for certain situations as well as certain teams, because Hugin is an attack buffer, Hugin has a shielding ability for sustain, and his shield gives the ally control immunity if you have his EX weapon to level 10, and gives the ally that 30% damage reduction or 20% damage reduction on the S plus skill in general. So that's why Hugi is recommended at S plus. For Rowan's case, M plus will be sufficient for the super potion, like Rowan's mainly for the ultimate as well as the super potion. So additional stats will give you more heals of the super potion, but M plus is sufficient if you're just using Rowan for PvE contents. So for PvP side, if you're using him, S plus or even Paragon tier. Then for Sinbad, Sinbad also M plus. I think Sinbad is generally used as a tech unit against specific units that are really hard to deal with, because they have damage reduction, they have defense boost, etc., or a ton of heal. Or you can use Sinbad as a PvP character to snipe off enemies together with Vala or in triple assassin comps in general. So generally versatile, not the best of the best, but definitely can see use from time to time. And then same thing for Ludovic's case. So Ludovic also generally used across multiple different game modes, and Ludovic's insanely good for Endless Dream Realm based on the previous season and past season experience. So I'll say for Sinbad's case, by the way, I forgot to mention, M plus because like you just need the EX weapon, you get additional damage on S plus. So if you want to make Sinbad more of a semi-carry, then you definitely need that tier as well as the EX weapon leveled up for him. But other than that, if you're using him more as a utility character, M plus is more than sufficient. So for Ludovic's case, S plus, because Ludovic's S plus is actually massive. Like the number one, you're using him mainly as a healer, right? So like he's additional stats, because his heal is based off his stats. So his heal is massive. So the more stats he have, the more massive his heal becomes. And he's also a damage dealer in Endless Dream Realm. So getting more stats on him allow him to hit a lot harder, because the damage is based off the percentage HP of your enemy, but also restricted by the amount of attack stats that he has. So S+ would be the way to go for Ludovic, because he's one of the well-rounded and good Graveborn character in the S class. Then we have Torrent, one of the better PvP characters for the Graveborn as well. Really good against melee units in general, and I'll say usable for general PvE contents if you don't have some of the better tanks up there built up, because you can use him as a frontliner and he can revive and come back a few times to buy some time for the backlines in general. So generally versatile, not the most meta unit anymore, but still usable across multiple different game modes. So that's for the versatile category. Now for the meta level side, okay, so meta level side, let's just jump into the units that I feel that has more discussion, right? So Harak, Pharesto, Talon, Twins, just really good across all the different game modes right now, and like they are usable across different game modes. I'll say Harak and Pharesto probably more meta than Talon and Twins, because Twins needs more testing and Talon falls off a little bit in the late game. But generally speaking, Talon's still insanely good for the PvP side, so I'm just going to put all 4 of them in meta. So Twins right now insanely good for PvE contents, for bossing, as well as for your AFK stage push, and I'm still experimenting with her in the PvP side. But I think once they get their ultimate off, like your Twins team is actually quite unstoppable. So very, very good unit. So late game wise, I do think they have the potential, but like I mentioned, I usually give like my verdict of the character after a full cycle of Dream Realm, as well as after sufficient testing on this unit. But I'll put them in meta because they're insanely good right now, at least based on the first few days of testing. Then for Shakir, generally versatile as well, used as an anti-control carry in the arena side. So this unit needs the stats to survive and has enough stats to transform to do damage, so that's why S+ is recommended. OD needs no explanation, right? S+ for additional damage, easier insta-kill and carrying potential. Smokey S+ is recommended because Smokey is used as a semi-carry for a lot of PvE contents, right? Because of the third aroma damage burn, so additional stats, additional DPS, and S+ also gives him more like heal numbers of the other allies if you're using him for your Dream Realm side, at least in the early to mid game where survival is key. So being one of the most meta units around, I think Smokey S+ is also okay. Then for Sonya's case, S+ ability gives her the skill to self-heal when she uses her ultimate, which greatly increases her sustain, making her a really good Dream Realm character, because she's able to heal herself up, she's able to do damage, she's able to buff 2 other units, could be your carry, could be your support, to make them tankier or do more damage. So very, very good meta character. Can also be used for PvP, although not as strong there, but there are a few teams that can run Sonya in it. Then for Lily May's case, one of the best unit in the game, both PvP and PvE, early game to late game, very, very versatile. Also one of the most easily accessible because she's now available in the season store, so you can slowly build her up in terms of the shards and then get her to S+ to max out her DPS potential. For Tasi's case, S+ is big because S+ ability gives her that additional revives of the Fluttering Dreams when she kill or assists an enemy, or kill or assist in the kill of another enemy. So the additional revive or the additional life from the Fluttering Dream is quite big in terms of allowing her to come back to life and be super duper annoying. And then that's where she will definitely get her ultimate off in one battle, as long as like she's not interrupted, and then she has the ability to carry you from there. So very, very strong unit, very, very meta across like PvE pushing as well as PvP in general. Maybe not so much in the Dream Realm side, but then like considering like her power level for PvP side, I think yeah, I'll consider her meta right now. Then we have Iron, Almas, Arden, and Damien. So I think out of this 4, right, Damien's the most independent. Like you can just use Damien for your PvP team for the EX weapon boost, as well as the heal for the sustain for the team. And you throw Damien into almost any PvP team and he will work because of how annoying he can be. So Damien's generally versatile, and you can use Damien for your PvE contents with your Mauler teams, with your Wilders team, or just any teams that need a very good killer or annoying unit on the battlefield itself. So S plus gives the increase in the blinding, but for the wildest A level, you have quite a few good A level characters. So I think, let's say if you are a little bit strapped on your pool resources, the M plus on Damien is good enough. Then for Iron, Arden as well as Almas, they are pretty much a trio, so you see them a lot in your AFK stage pushing. You also use them a lot for the PvP to counter a lot of teams out there, so still really good. Like, probably not the strongest combination right now because you have a lot of options, but the thing is, you can still use them with a lot of teams. You can still use them with a lot of units, like even units like Bonnie, for example. So Bonnie is, I'll say, one of the hottest unit right now because she's still in the banner and she's insanely good across multiple different contents, and she's one of those units that go with Arden, Iron, and Almas. So I didn't put Bonnie's name there because she's one of the latest additions, so I just edited her into the infographics. But Bonnie is insanely meta right now, both for PvP as well as PvE contents in general, being one of the best AoE damage dealer, being one of the best damage dealer plus debuffer built into one unit, and synergizes really well with multiple different teams like your Iron, Almas, Arden com, or even Bonnie Satrana com in the PvP side, or Bonnie with Tasi as well as Talin to slowly wither your opponent down. So there's a lot of different team options, and she's just insanely good with S plus because S plus increases your team's damage output if you're using a magical team, right, as well as further increasing the ultimate damage of the skills itself. So S plus is quite good for Bonnie, highly recommended. Then for this trio over here, S plus as well, because the S plus skill is superb, giving you additional control on the enemy. And for Almas's case, M plus is sufficient because you just need an EX weapon to synergize with Iron as well as other control units in general. So that's pretty much it. I hope this is concise enough for the M plus and S plus recommendation for the different units in terms of their general usage. So hope you guys like this sort of shorter form tier list, priority list itself. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more, and stay tuned for the EX weapon and priority Paragon priority recommendation. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.